Ready now? Hari Om. Hari Om. We were in the middle of Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, Karma Yoga, when this coronavirus started sweeping across the globe and drove all of us to seek shelter in our own homes. Today, we are living a new reality. As they say, handshakes, hugs, and kisses are lethal weapons. Not visiting your family and friends are considered acts of love, and the stark realization has set in on everybody's mind that money, power, and beauty cannot get you that oxygen which you desperately need when you are in respiratory distress. Well, I'm digressing. To get back to our topic, since there has been a lapse of 3 months since our last discourse, I think it is best that I give you a brief summary of Karma Yoga that has been covered so far. As you all know, in chapter 2, Lord Krishna emphasizes the need to act and do your duty. And then, in the last 18 verses of chapter 2, he emphasized and glorified the path of renunciation and contemplation as he described the Sthita Prajna. So naturally, at the beginning of chapter 3, Arjuna starts off with a doubt, and he asks Lord Krishna, you said that I need to act and do my duty, meaning to fight the war, and then you glorify the path of contemplation. Tell me which one of these paths is nobler. I want you to think over it and give me one path I need to follow. Lord Krishna answers saying that these are not two diverse paths, but both paths lead to the same goal. And you cannot practice contemplation without a calm mind. And in order to calm your mind, one might need to do Karma Yoga to get the mind prepared for the path of contemplation. So activity, he starts off with Karma Yoga, and Lord Krishna says, activity is the hallmark of life. Any living being that does not show any activity is considered dead. In all the living beings, the plants are supposed to respond. They respond to sunlight and humidity. Animals act based on their instincts and impulses. Man alone can work. Work is intelligent action, and that's called karma. This karma has been classified and subdivided into two main categories. Karma or actions can be noble and good, and those are called good karmas, or There could be actions beneath the human dignity, such as murder, torture, rape, etc. It's called Naishkarma. So karma and Naishkarma. Karma again has two components. One is the daily duties called Nitya Karma. Daily duties meaning duties that we have to perform for ourselves, like sleeping, eating, bathing, taking care of our personal needs, exercise, working. These are all daily duties that we have to do. They are called Nitya Karma. And then there are activities that come upon us occasionally. They are called the Nainitya Karma. What are these occasional activities? Things like my friend's daughter is getting married. I need to make time to go and bless the couple. My neighbor meets with an accident and ends up in the hospital. I have the duty to go to the hospital and console him. So these are occasional activities. They are not there every single day, but they do happen every now and then. And even though I may have a full day's work, I have to make time to do those obligatory duties as long as I want to live in a community. These two, the Nitya Karma and the Nainitya Karma, are together called Niyata Karma, or obligatory duties. So we are all required to perform our obligatory duties on a regular basis. Now, when Lord Krishna said this, Arjuna had a doubt. Actions leave impressions in your mind, and that leads to formation of vasanas. In actual fact, our purpose in life is to exhaust the vasanas. And now Lord Krishna is saying, go out and act and do your duty. But by doing so, we would be accumulating more vasanas. So there is an obvious contradiction, and that was Arjuna's doubt. So Lord Krishna says, actions done without selfish motives do not create vasanas. In fact, if you act without selfish motives, not only do they not create new vasanas, but existing vasanas get exhausted. And that is what Karma Yoga is all about. So the question is, how does one act without selfish motives? There is a common misconception that Karma Yoga means that you give up everything and go out and do social service. That's not exactly what Karma Yoga means. Lord Krishna has said that many times, that we are all given a certain body and placed in a certain environment that is best suited to exhaust our vasanas. So we are required to do whatever we are doing now. Do your obligatory duties, the Niyata Karma, to the best of your abilities wherever you are. We play many different roles all the time. Each one of us play many different roles. The father, the mother, we play the role of a brother, sister, employer, employee, doctor, engineer, accountant, and so on. We play many different roles. Do your best in everything that you do. In every interaction with the world, do what is best without consideration for what is there in it for me. Unfortunately, all of us, in anything that we do, we always look for profit or what is there for me to gain by doing this. And that is the selfish motive that comes in. Lord Krishna emphasizes that we need to do all our duties without consideration for what is in it for me. And when the good feeling that and satisfaction of a job well done is your reward. When we do a good job to the best of our ability, we get a satisfaction that we have done a good job. That is the reward. Material rewards will follow, but that should not be part of the consideration or expectation when we start doing the activity. Material rewards will automatically come, but it is not part of your expectation. The more the satisfaction, the greater is your inspiration to do more. Mind's agitation gets less and becomes receptive for higher pursuits. So when we act in this manner with no expectations of rewards, but doing your very best, that almost guarantees that your actions would be excellent, and excellent work will produce excellent results. Rewards would be there. That is not your expectation, but it will definitely come. When we work in that manner, the mind gets calmer, and the calmer the mind gets, the more inspired you get to do more of those activities, and thereby the mind becomes prepared for higher spiritual pursuits. Then Lord Krishna adds, if a group of people get together and act selflessly for the common good of others, that community will prosper. Now when each one of us are acting selflessly, but we get together and act for the common good of others, then that community will prosper. History bears that out very clearly. As you can see, hospitals, roads, buildings, all these come with cooperation of many. Somebody starts off with the idea, but others cooperate, and then it materializes all these good things that the community requires. And that is called the Yagna spirit. When everybody get together and do things for the common good of everybody without expectation of any personal interest. It is called working in the Yagna spirit. As you all might know, we have mentioned earlier, producers are very few in any community. If you take any community, the people who are capable of producing goods are very few, but the consumers are many. So the few that are capable of producing have a responsibility to produce for everybody. Let them not ask themselves, why should I work for them? It is an obligatory duty for the community that you ought to do. You are given special talents and skills by the good Lord. Use it to benefit everybody. That's the idea. Producers are few, but consumers are many. An example is Gurudev. When Puja Gurudev wanted to give lectures in the scriptures, because the answers to life's problems are there in our sacred scriptures, and the common man is not aware of all that. So he started with single-handedly, with no support at all, with this idea of giving lectures and going around the world preaching. When people started seeing that he is doing good work without any selfish interest, then people started working together with him. And look at the empire that he built. which is still serving people not only now but for future generations as well. That's the idea of the Yagna spirit and Karma Yoga. How can any activity become Yagna just by changing my attitude? Arjuna naturally has this question. You say that any activity becomes a Yagna just by your attitude. You will change your attitude, you will take the selfishness out of your attitude and you act on. Then your act becomes a Yagna. Now in the good old days, in Arjuna's days, Yagna meant rituals. That means you perform rituals to the Lord. Here, Krishna is saying any activity, not necessarily only going to the temple and doing a ritual. Any activity that you do for the common good of others without any selfish interest is a Yagna. So that was the question that Arjuna had. How can any action be a Yagna just by you changing your attitude? Lord Krishna answers, Annad Bhavanti Bhutani. That's a famous statement. Anna is food. Food is not just, what is there in the storeroom. That is raw material. But when that is cooked and brought to the table and consumable and assimilable, that is called Anna. So Anna Bhavanti Bhutani means this whole world, the living beings are made of food. If you really think about it, everything is based on food eaten by that person. Man eats food and he grows older and then he produces children. The child grows again by food. So life is sustained by food. These mineral wealth that is in the land is cultivated and made into consumable food by man's effort. And man's effort alone is not enough to cultivate a land. I can go and plow a land and sow some seeds and expect that to grow. It will not produce any consumable product without the help of rain. Rain means water. Water in whatever form, when water is produced and pumped into the system, that's when that field or that land will produce the products. So rain is essential in producing consumable goods. In the same way, not only in agriculture, there is potential, productive potential in every situation. And that productive potential in any situation can be evoked only by man's sincere effort and a psychological rain. That psychological rain is this Yagna spirit, that people join together and work towards the common good of others. And that's called the Yagna spirit. Assimilable food by rain. Similarly, in all fields of activity, enjoyable profits can be gained by sincere effort and the psychological rain, and that's called the Yagna spirit. So, controlling the sense organs by the mind, act on without attachment. That's the advice given by Lord Krishna. Controlling your sense organs by your mind. Sense organs are controlled only by the mind, because eyes, ears, nose, everything, these are the sense organs. They are already controlled, meaning they are already in a controlled environment there. But they leak out only because my mind leaks out through them. So control your senses by your mind and act on. Controlling the sense organs by your mind, act on without attachment. By attachment is meant identification with things or beings and seeking fruits of your actions. That's what attachment is. Attachment is ego and egocentric desires. If I work with attachment for my own sake and to gain something out of that, that is attachment. Attachment will make my effort to become a failure. So take that attachment out of my action becomes good and profitable. Then we come to a very famous verse 21. Yad acharadi shreshtaha tad eva taro janaka sayat pramanam kurde lokas tad anuvartade, which means every one of us expect others to do the things that need to be done. For example, we want the government to take care of anything that needs to be done in the community. But the Lord says, whatever the Shreshta Purusha, meaning the noble people of a community, whatever they do, others implicitly follow. We see that all the time. I have given examples before. Apparently, John Kennedy, when he was president, he started jogging early in the morning, and they televised that. So when people see the president jogging in the morning, jogging became popular. Actually, the jogging became popular mainly because of John Kennedy jogging in the morning. And as you can see now, our president refuses to wear the mask. And people who admire and follow him don't want to wear the mask. So imitation is the highest method by which we show appreciation for who we admire. So therefore, it is the responsibility of the noble people of the society, of the community, to set an example, to behave in such a way that others who look up to them will follow implicitly. Sayat pramanam kurde, they follow you implicitly. So the moral is that there is responsibility on each and every one of us. Why? Because we might say, well, I'm not an important person, why would anybody look up to me? Every one of us, if you really think about it, we may be looking up to somebody else, but there are others who look up to us. Even a beggar on the street, there are people who look up to him. His children look up to him. So each one of us is a Shreshta Purusha in this context. So therefore, it is the responsibility of each and every one of us to conduct ourselves in such a way so that others who are looking up to us will imitate us implicitly. That's what this verse means. Verse 21. By your actions, you set an example for others to follow. Now, vasana exhaustion is the reason for our existence here. I have already mentioned that earlier. The good Lord, in His infinite kindness and compassion, has given me this particular body and put me in this particular environment because this is the most suitable environment for me to exhaust my vasanas. So if I have joy in my life, it is necessary. If there is sadness in my life, it is necessary. I had given the example earlier of a doctor prescribing treatment for patients. And the example that I gave was a patient with dysentery who had so bad dysentery that he admitted to the hospital. His friend goes to visit him and he complains that the doctor would not give him any food at all. He had only ordered barley water for me to drink. While I look at my neighbor, my other patient in the room, he gets 3 meals a day. That's because probably the doctor knows him personally and he is doing him a favor by giving him more good food and not for me. In actual fact, he is there only because he met with an accident and he has a broken leg. There is nothing wrong with him in the rest of the system. So he can eat 3 meals a day. But I am not able to eat because I have severe dysentery. That's why the doctor had ordered barley water. But I keep complaining. So much so that my neighbor tells me, okay, when the dinner comes, I'll give you my soup, you give me your barley. So dinner comes, I give him my barley water and he gives me the soup. I have the soup and I enjoy it. He takes the barley water. The one who drank the barley water, his stomach is all very light and he has a good night's sleep. And the soup fellow, in the middle of the night, people come around. The curtains come around, doctors and nurses come around and they are wondering what happened to this man. He was improving and progressing well. Why all of a sudden now did he start deteriorating? It is at that time that his neighbor says that he had given his soup to this fellow. The idea is, you are prescribed certain environment and situations for your own good. Do not compare yourself to others and do not try to imitate somebody else, because that is dependent on their vasanas. You do what is appropriate for your own vasana. And then we come to another famous verse number 30. My sarvani karmani sanniyasa adhyatma shetasha nirasisa nirmamo bhutva yuddhasya vigara jvara. What does that mean? Surrender all your activities at my altar. My sarvani karmani sannyas. Renounce all your activities at my altar. Now, how do we do that? We do this all the time. We are all working for a particular purpose, an altar. That altar need not necessarily be a spiritual altar. It can be for my family. It can be for my profession. But there is some ideal, some motive that drives me to do the things that I want to do. Why do I work day and night? So that I can support my family, so that I can give my family a good life. So that is the altar that I am working for. The Lord says, do your activities and surrender that at my altar. How do we do that? When we act normally, we are working purely from an egocentric point of view, for our own self-aggrandizement. You take that negative aspect out of our action. You take that wrong motive out of there. The rest becomes automatically surrender at the Lord's feet. So all our actions become good when we take the egocentric motive out of the way. Surrender your actions at my altar. Egocentric actions result in failure. Dilute by expanding into benefit for others instead of only me. When we are acting we act only for the sake of me and my family and my everything about me. The Lord advises, expand it, not only to me, but maybe to my extended family, and then expand that to my friends and neighbors, and then to my community. And the wider you expand your circle, and you work for the wider circle, to that extent you are diluting your selfishness. Even a poison, when it is diluted, has therapeutic value. In the same way, when you work with your selfish interest, but you do it for the sake of a wider community, then it becomes profitable. Now, in the same verse, Nirasi nirmoma bhutva yuddhasva vigat jvaraha. We get inspired to do so many things, but that inspiration dies down. How? Lord Krishna explains our inspiration and our motivation to do good things. We start off doing some things that are good, but halfway through we dissipate and lose the interest. How do we lose it? In the 3 periods of time. Number 1, by regrets about the past. We remember all the failures that we have suffered in the past and think that because of these failures, I can never do anything right. Gurudev gives an example. He says, why do good people want to become good? They are already good. Attaining goodness is the right of bad people. People sometimes have asked Gurudev, he says, Swamiji, how come bad people only come to you? He says, that is where I come in. I am here for the bad people. Good people don't need me. Just like around a doctor, he is surrounded by sick people. Is there a doctor who ever says, I am sick and tired of this profession because no healthy person ever comes to me? Only sick people would go to a doctor. In the same way, it is the bad or the one who is not doing good who is capable of improving. So never regret about the failures in your past. That's one avenue by which we dissipate our enthusiasm and inspiration. The other avenue is by anxieties about the future. The future is an unknown entity. We have no data about the future. So what is there to worry about that? If I am going to be at an examination hall, taking an exam, but I am worried that if I don't pass that exam, I will not get the job that I desire. That anxiety would make me not perform well at this exam, and naturally I am not going to pass that exam. Whereas if I don't worry about that and focus only on the job at hand, which is the examination that I am doing, I am almost guaranteed that I will do a good job at the exam and the results would be good, and good results will definitely give good ending. Now the last and the third avenue by which I dissipate is excitement in the future. Feverish excitement. Excitement, that's what the jvara means. Feverish excitement of the present, and I do not do the things that I am supposed to be doing even in the present, and naturally I dissipate my energy that way. So these 3 methods by which exhausting my energies, I lose my inspiration. By taking the wrong motives out of our actions we renounce our actions at the Lord's altar, as I mentioned earlier. This brings us to verse 32. Actually, there are 43 verses in Karma Yoga, so we have about 12 more verses to go, which we would cover in the next session or two. Thank you.
Thank you so much.